today. I'm glad that you could come. How many of you were here at the panel 2 weeks ago? A couple of you. Great. Maybe it was more.
I think it was 2.
March 10th was the last time that this panel met, so more than 2 weeks, you're right. I'm Glynis Fitzgerald. I am the Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs and Dean of the Graduate School, and unbeknownst to most, I am responsible, amongst my responsibilities for, as AVP, is to coordinate the online learning for the university. And so there were a number of questions I think that came up last time that were specific to policy or procedure. So I'm here today in order to be able to answer those questions. And I'm joined by some great panelists, some of whom were here last time, some were not. We'll go down the table and you can introduce yourself, your program, your experience with online learning or hybrid learning, and anything else you'd like to say as sort of opening comments.
Chris Larson, Geological Sciences. I've been doing online courses through Charter Oak for, I don't even know how long it's been, close to the beginning of the millennium I started, I think. And then after doing it at Charter Oak for several years, I took what I had learned there and brought it to CCSU. So I currently teach 2 different online classes during winter and summer session. A course, non-major basic course in astronomy, and a non-major basic course in general earth science.
I am Dan Miller. You may know there's 2 of us. I'm the one from math. And I've been at CCSU for, well, since 1982. You can do the math. I've been teaching online since the inception of the data mining program, and our grant was in 2001, so I think my first online course was probably 2003. Regularly teach 3 different online courses, actually developed 5 altogether, but that's where I am right now.
And I'll just interrupt to say that data mining is one of the 2 completely online programs that we have at the university. We have data mining, and we also now have modern languages, Spanish, available wholly online, and are looking to add more as programs add to their offerings.
Hello, I'm Talat Salama. I'm faculty at Construction Management, one of the programs within the School of Engineering, Science and Technology. My experience with online is now about 6 to 7 years. Currently at CCSU, it's at the master's level, more so than the undergraduate level. It's a 500 level course. It basically introduces students, especially those who do not have background in construction management, to the concepts of construction management. And with a master's level student, this can be quite beneficial because many of them are working or taking care of family, so it might be difficult for them to be here on campus. So that worked out quite nicely. Actually, is offered now every single semester for the past 2 years, including summer session. Previous to that, I was able also to teach undergraduate level courses and part management, part technical in economics and what have you. So something that I'm familiar with, and I'm happy to be part of this institution that promotes online teaching.
Hello, I'm David Oyanadel. I know many of you, and also I've been with online and hybrid for a long time. In fact, I was helping back at Eastern with when we had e-college way back when, work with faculty to develop courses there too. And so hybrid and online has been a passion of mine as well. And I'm a graduate of the program with Dr. Sponder, and so I'm proud of what my experience at the program, and I learned far new and better techniques there as well. Thank you.
Great. I'm Barry Sponder. I've been teaching online since 1982, pretty much every year since 1982. We called it distance education in those days, except for 4 years when I was living in Singapore. But every year since, I've been teaching online courses. And in the next 6 weeks, I'll be going to India to teach a university course for university professors in India on how to use e-learning and what do you call it again? What do you call it? Flipped learning, yeah, e-learning and flipped learning. So pretty much the things that we teach here to our students at Central, we'll be teaching to people in India at the same time.
I wanted to start by opening it up broadly to questions. We each have things that we have prepared to speak on, but it's most important to address the concerns or questions that you all have that you know prompted you to come today. So if there's specific questions you want us to address at the get-go, we can, or questions that came up from last time that weren't addressed that you want to make sure that we have time to address today. Any questions to start us? Yes.
Start with a question. Do you know, panelists, how do you define online versus hybrid course? Where's the boundary in between? And let's start with this.
So it shouldn't be a question that each one would answer individually.
Yes.
We have a university policy with regards to what defines a course as online versus hybrid. An online course for the university is wholly online, 100%. There is no requirement for them to come to class at any point in time so that the student could take a course from Singapore or anywhere else in the world. And we do, in data mining, have students from around the country. We're hoping that we'll have people from our partner institutions to participate globally. So online is 100% online. The task force will be coming out with some clearer definitions that will be presented at Senate in a couple weeks.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully. And when we do that, that will be rolled out for the whole university. But otherwise, anything less than 100%, up to 51%, is going to be considered online hybrid. So that the idea is that that course is, for the most part, online, but that there is some on-ground requirements. We also have, of course, the blended classes where someone in a traditional brick and mortar classroom would be flipping some of their content or blending some of their content. And we can talk about the differences between those two categories as well. But to answer your question, we don't want each person to have their own individual definitions, but instead have one common definition for the
Okay, I think
university.
I got the answer actually. So up to 50% is a hybrid course. Now, how do you define courses that may have, say, 20-25% content online, and then the rest is in traditional setting?
That will be a hybrid on-ground course. We will have two different kinds of hybrid courses if these definitions get passed through. We'll have actually 4 definitions: completely on ground, completely online, hybrid online, hybrid on ground, depending on whether the majority is on ground or online.
And the whole point is to make it very clear to the student from the time that they register for the course what the expectations are. So if it is a hybrid course, we want to tell them from the beginning when they register for the course, on these days you will be responsible to be physically on campus, so they can plan ahead. As we grow in our online offerings, the one thing that we've come across is you might say it's an online course, but I want you to take my exam Tuesday from 2 to 4, and the same requirement may be made for another online course. And we need to let the students know of those kind of requirements from the very beginning so that they're not in conflict with one another.
Okay, may I follow up with another question?
Yep, and then we'll get to Gustavo.
How is it set? Who makes a decision, okay, 30% will be sufficient online, 70 is on ground, or how is that being made?
That is always, and I'll keep saying this today, because it is always the decision of the faculty and your program. However you make curriculum decisions within your program, that is up to you. The university is never going to say, this course needs to be online, this course needs to be hybrid. That is not up to the university, it's up to the faculty as a choice of how to deliver, just like we wouldn't say, you need to teach on PowerPoint or you need to use Prezi. That's just the delivery, and we leave the delivery up to you to decide.
I'm not wanting to monopolize the conversation now, but I have one more question following up on this. So a course may be one semester taught as totally on ground, and the same class with the same description may be offered another semester as more online. It's up to who to decide how it's going to be delivered.
Well, now, in a program where they're out there in the world saying this is an online program, they would need to make a choice within the department to schedule it often enough that a student could complete in a timely manner exclusively online. If it's not a wholly online program, that's always going to be up to the department to decide what makes sense.
Thank you.
Gustavo, sure.
Dennis, could you expand on the concept of blended?
Mhm. So a blended course, well, actually, let's let our faculty talk
Do you
more
mean as
about
in flipped? That as an example? Of,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
For example, I do my Science 111, which is a required science class for all people who are going to be elementary education majors, as a, quote, flipped classroom. In a flipped classroom, I'll say burden. The burden is on the students to do work ahead of time to figure out what they don't know and what they're having difficulty with, so that when they come to the valuable in-class time, the faculty member can concentrate on the material that the students are having the difficult time with. So we're not introducing the material in the classroom. The students are introducing themselves to the material through Blackboard materials that are provided. In the case of my flipped classroom, after they go through a brief PowerPoint and the readings, they have to take a 10-question multiple choice test and a quiz, and they have to send me a Blackboard message telling me specifically from that material what they want me to focus on in class that next day. So I come to that class, and if every single one of those students understands tides, I don't waste a second talking about tides. If 18 out of 24 say, I don't understand the phases of the moon, I know that I have to take a huge chunk of time and do phases of the moon with them. So it's a different way of rather than let's say having a student read before coming to class and then do a whole lecture starting from scratch in the classroom and then assigning homework. This way, a lot of this preparatory work is done up front, but again, the student is taking responsibility for going through that material, figuring out what they're having the most difficulty with. And it's also a burden on me because I have to be very flexible. I have to create assignments on the fly, almost, with 12 hours notice. But I found that it has made the in-class time so much more efficient, being able to address just what the students have told me through their scores on the multiple choice quiz and through their messages. And I know more or less what they're going to have difficulties with, usually.
Yeah, that clarifies to me the concept of flipped, but not really the concept of blended.
So blended is a bigger umbrella under which flipped would be one way to blend your class. So you could blend your class in a number of ways, but the idea of blending is essentially combining both online and on-ground in order to meet the course
So,
materials.
for example, a course that would not be flipped.
Mhm.
You have lectures and you have assignments to do either between classes or outside of classroom.
Mhm.
That would be a blended.
That's
class.
correct, yeah. The idea of flipped is really a very specific one, where blended is a bigger category. I have never taught an online course, truthful disclosure here, but I have flipped my classroom. And when I flipped a public speaking class, instead of doing I never lectured again. I only worked in the class with the students side by side. Okay, let's look at your opening, let's talk about that. Because they watched all the videos of the lectures ahead of time. So they had about an hour worth of work that they had to watch in addition to the reading before they came to the
Or you
classroom.
can actually flip without using technology, it's just the books.
Except that you get the information as faculty, and that's one of the beauties, and I think what you were pointing out, and again, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but I think that's one of the really great things, is before they are in front of you how they did on the quiz the night before, and so you know what you need to really spend time on, and you have an idea of how well they're absorbing the material, which you could do at a pop quiz when they got in the room too. So.
From a technology point of view, now with the new video, Kaltura, for example, you can get reports on how many students actually watched the video and how long they watched the video. So if you recorded something, if you recorded an activity for them to, let's say, 5-minute little clip on how to do something or how to approach a particular reading, you can tell if the students actually drop a minute into the video and they never finish it. There's some, Kaltura also can incorporate quizzing within the video, so you can actually pop in a quiz inside of the video. So if they're not paying attention to the video, you will know, so you can be better prepared when you come to teach with them, to work with them, that they're they didn't do the things they were supposed to do correctly, or they had troubles. And now you have to think of a way to, how to engage them again, how do I put them into the right direction? That's from a technology point of view.
Yes.
I was here on the previous session, sorry I couldn't make it, but my question is about how to measure the amount of work that one should plan for the students to do when we do an online course. So do we measure in terms of hours that they should spend working on the assignments, or in terms of what? Can you give me some idea of, because that is the problem I'm facing now when I'm planning for an online course that I'm going to be offering in the summer, and I don't really know how much to give them, how much is too much.
Objectives. Start with the objectives. What are the objectives? What are your goals? And work from there. And pretty much what you do on campus and online, it's very similar. I mean, the differences are more imaginary than, in my opinion, because if you develop good materials on campus, you can use them online. It's just whatever the objectives are for the students, I think you can accomplish them both online and on campus. And what you want to do is just plan for the amount of time that it would take to meet those objectives. So don't make it any more difficult than it needs to be, because it really is just, if you think of a teacher being the manager of the education environment, is what teachers do, then that environment could be wherever you want it to be, in my opinion. So what you're doing on campus, you can just, I believe, easily just adapt it to an online situation.
But there is a firm guideline from the university through our accreditation that for every credit hour, you will provide 15 hours of instructional time, however you define that. And that doesn't have to be you talking at them in a lecture, but it could be the video that they watch, could be considered instructional time. But each student will receive 15 hours of instructional time for every low credit. So a 3-credit course would require 45 hours of instructional time. And we also anticipate at the undergraduate level that the student will spend 2 hours for every 1 hour in class. So 45 hours in class of instructional time, and we expect that every undergraduate is going to spend 90 hours outside. Now, you and I can all understand that probably our students aren't spending 2 hours every week for every credit that they're in the classroom. But that is the expectation, and that is what we attest to. And as we start the NEASC self-study for 2018, one of the new requirements is that I'm going to be asking a number of faculty for syllabi, which they will assess to see if it meets what they think are 45 hours for a 3-credit course of instructional time. So you can use that as a guide.
And I want to add to that, so in my courses that I developed, I don't put out videos that are 45 hours long. And that's, so however, if you can manage a third of that time to a half, that would be perfect actually. And the rest of the time could be a part of discussion boards, could be assignments that you put, because assignments also could be a part of your lecture that you put out a quiz here or there. So you could definitely manage those 45 hours and verify that you have went through them without needing to prove through videos, for example, that you've spent all that time on it. So it works.
Yeah, break it down per week.
Exactly.
It's easy per week. 3 hours are going to be on campus, and then you can have an extra 6 hours outside. I mean, that's doable. So that's the smallest manageable chunk, and you can parse that out in terms of this kind of reading, this kind of responding, this kind of researching. So that makes, to me, that makes it a lot. I need it the smallest as possible. So if you figure 9 hours, including whatever you have, then that's, I think that should be doable for any of us.
Just to put a finer point on it, though, at the same time, you don't want to just have them, here's their reading. Their reading would take them 2 hours for the average student to read it, and then take a quiz. That's not instructional time. We're not getting to instructional time. The 2 hours that they would spend reading is the outside time, not your instructional time. Okay, so that gets away from those few, and we don't have a lot of them on campus, but there are still those which it's just read the text, take the quiz, you get a grade. And that we have to go make sure that we eliminate altogether.
I
Yes.
just wanted to add that if you pre-record lectures either on video or on audio, you can pack a lot of information in a shorter time, because when you do that in the classroom, you repeat stuff, you answer questions from the students, you go back, you look, you see that they don't get it, so you go back. Whereas in a pre-recorder, you just practice out the best you can, and students can go back on their own. So in 20 minutes, you can pack a 45-minute lecture.
But then you want to supplement it, as you do, with more quizzes and things like that, so you can assess, what it won't be live, it won't be real time, but you'll still get that feedback from the student. There's so much that's available, and maybe you all can speak to it, in terms of getting more feedback and having more of a discussion. It's not just us posting information on a website, but the back and forth that you do online with students. Can you talk a little bit about that, maybe?
I can start with office hours. For example, we have to have office hours here on campus. So actually, I do have online office hours where I tell the students on the syllabus and of course on Blackboard, my office hours during the week are such and such. I'll be on my computer live to chat back and forth with you during those hours. So that's how I manage, for example, office hours, and that will be part of that communication. And of course, discussion boards is another tool that you could use, where we can have, by texting through Blackboard back and forth, I could put down an assignment or a question, and they have to research and sit back and come back with answers, and these answers can actually be shared with the entire group, depending on how you set up your Blackboard account. So every student get a chance to read the responses and make sure that everybody understands the concepts, and if anybody's having questions, you answer those. So you can have a nice, lively discussion back and forth if you use that tool as well.
Yeah, with tools like WebEx, for example, you have the opportunity to have interaction with the students. However, I have some doubts about this, and I'd like you to get your opinion about the use of WebEx and these interactions with the students, because especially if you have students who are on different time zones, for example, that can create a problem. And students may have different schedules, and they may not be able to attend. So how do you handle that?
Yeah, I had the same problem with the WebEx. I scheduled some meetings, and it was in the summer, so I have only one semester experience. But one had to go to the beach, the other one had to go I don't know where. So finally, nobody was showing up in the WebEx meeting.
My experience is that, as a background, I record all the classes that I teach, both on campus and off campus. Everything is recorded, so if anyone misses for any reason, we're able to go back, whether it's a full-time class or something online. And I also teach at the University of Maryland University College, a full-time online graduate program in ed tech, and we have students from Japan, from Kuwait, and I've actually had students calling from Jordan at 3:30 in the morning there to participate. People do it. Sometimes they can't do it, obviously, so it's all recorded. But the idea is, if you have a wide enough net, I mean, you can't expect to always get everyone to participate equally or even participate. So you build in structures that allow them to make it individual for people's needs. College students, if people got lives and stuff, so you want to have ways that you can catch them as well. So, I've got an example of some of the things I do with WebEx, and I find it a very terrific tool because students can make presentations, respond to each other. You can actually have students participate in the middle of the conference. They'll come on, they can respond to each other. I would hope that every teacher who's doing any kind of work online would have that built in some way. Not every week. I do it every week, but not, I know you do it, right? I know you do it. So you see that it really is a powerful tool. So I think when you see some examples, maybe from Chris and some other folks.
No, we've been using it, but so far we've only had students from this area. So now we're open to expand and open to different time zones, and it's kind of been turning around in my head.
Dan, your program is wholly online, and it has been for some time. Do you make any adjustments for time zone differences, or?
I just use discussion threads, so they can be done anytime. And you're right, we have students from all over the world, so I can appreciate the difficulties that these people are describing.
So if you set it up to be asynchronous, then you're all set. If you set it up with the requirement of some synchronicity, you probably want to let the students know about that at minimum in the syllabus, and more realistically, if you really are going to require, once a week that they're online with you, that I would argue that you'd want that in the notes for when they register for the course.
I do a lot of discussion boards, and I've listed some of my assignments up there because I guess people wanted examples of assignments last time. So I have my students do a lot of writing, so I get to hear their voice through their words. And so I have a lot of discussion board threads which are open-ended, so that I give you some examples up there, and sort of my mantra is that since a lot of students are science phobic, I want them to feel comfortable with science, and so it has to mean something to them in their lives. So there's a lot of sharing, a lot of comparing, a lot of oohing and eyeing about what each other have found, and they really get into it. I also found that my online students email me and phone me much more than the students who are here. And so I have a lot of one-on-one conversations with my online students through email, through the messaging on Blackboard, and through good old-fashioned phone calls. So I'm getting there's a lot of conversation going on, and also when they write their essays, I put copious comments. I mean, it's amazing how much time I spend grading, not just correcting, but commenting. Both, wow, that's really great, I didn't know that, thank you for that. Have you ever thought about this? Giving them examples of additional websites to go look. If you'd like to explore this further, check this out. And so I find that I'm having a lot more and more meaningful conversations with these students, but mostly on a one-on-one basis outside of the discussion boards.
And the one thing I hear most from faculty who are doing online for the first time and frustrated with it is the expectation of the students, that the students are really anticipating you are going to give them feedback much, much more frequently than in an on-ground course, right? You teach a once-a-week grad course, you hand out an assignment, you get it back a week later, you give it back to them, I gave it back 2 or 3 weeks later after that, right? Now they're posting their assignment or making a point to a discussion board. They're expecting that the faculty will be in that shell. Charter Oak requires it every 48 hours. We don't make any sort of requirement, but the expectation of the student is that you're going to be in that shell, commenting, getting them feedback, responding much more frequently than in an on-ground course.
I have a rule, one of my best practices, I consider the best practice, is that no student response goes unresponded to. And so I'm always looking for at least a 3-level response where they'll say something, I'll say something, they'll have to respond back to me. So I'll look for something that they haven't explained or something that they could give further detail on, so that every single thing that they write has got to be supported either by facts or some illustration. So when someone says, well, it's really good, I say, what's good about it? And so the idea is that, because writing is such a big deal, I also believe in writing, that you want people to be able to show and not tell, to show what they're saying, to further elaborate on what they're doing. So I think that is one of the strengths of having message boards, is the fact that you can really focus in on those things that you want students to pay attention to or to express.
In addition to do reflections at the end of each module, to have the ability for the students to write or to keep sort of a journal or some sort of reflection.
Blog or something.
Or blog. And the professor can look into the reflection, the student can look into the reflection. It could be open reflection depending on the type of class. And so the students also are part content creators for the course. So they take ownership in the course. And once the students take ownership of the course, the communication just becomes alive. And actually when you read the reflections, you can tell what is happening with this person. If the reflections are very shallow and they're not going at all to the point, you know there's something wrong here, so you can go in and dig a little deeper right away before it's too late in the course. That's one idea.
Yes, please.
when a student asks a question, isn't that question typically asked to the faculty only, or for the benefit of that student, or to all the students for benefit of all of them? The reason I'm asking that is the communication one-on-one. If there are 5 of us here, we can communicate like this, and you don't know what she asked me, and you don't know what I responded. Now, I can respond to everyone, and I see it in regular classes. Sometimes students say, oh, you responded to what was that question? Was fluff. The question shouldn't be asked. The student was clearly unprepared, and you make us to read these responses. And I don't have answers to that, okay? So these are unprepared students. So what I'm looking at here simply is how that should be addressed, that communication should be going en masse to everyone or to that student only. And I would not know what others are missing.
I have one of the conferences each week is questions or comments about anything in this class or anything that we've studied so far, etc. If it's personal, email me. Sometimes people will email me with something that will apply to the rest of the class. I'll say, put it in that conference so I can respond to the whole class. So if it's not personal, then I'll make it so that the rest of the class can see it. And if it is personal, they can't make a specific class or something, that's different. So if you, at least I differentiate between what would be of general interest. And then if someone says something and I respond to them with an answer that would respond to the rest of the class they'd be interested in, I'll just take that and post it as Jolene asked this and I mentioned this and so on. So it's easy enough if you're anticipating that there will be responses that are just for one person and responses for the appropriate for the rest of the class. As long as you anticipate that, I think that's an easy one to handle, in my opinion.
Dan?
I set up my discussion threads so the whole class can see. A lot of times they'll address the question to me, and when they do that, I'll say, other students might be able to answer your question. You should really be asking everyone. If it's something of a personal nature where it wouldn't be appropriate to send a response to the whole class, I ask them to use the email, the internal course email system to do that. And I think somebody else mentioned it, I mean, the students benefit from all students will benefit from my response. As far as trivial questions versus more difficult ones, I try to answer all of them just because I don't want somebody to feel like they are reluctant to ask questions through the discussion threads. If I don't answer a question where other people may be rolling their eyes, the student may have a good question at some point and be afraid to ask. So I do spend the same care answering difficult questions as I would simpler questions.
Thank you.
I have a Q&A thread that's at the top of the discussion board permanently. So if a student has a question, and a lot of times one of their fellow classmates will answer it before I get to it. Not always, but many times a classmate will answer it. And so that's a nice space where they can ask any question at any time. And I also have students who use it as a bulletin board to say, I just read about this really cool thing that relates back to what we talked about last week. And they'll share it with their classmates. So,
Martha, and then up here, and then over here.
I was wondering if there's a best practice for moderating discussion boards, because I've generally given the discussion boards over to my students with a specific targeted question or set of questions to answer or comment on, and then I go through and I moderate silently. I don't make comments to the general discussion board. I just make sure that they're actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. Is this something that would be not such great practice? Or, I mean, because I see that students actually do tend to respond to each other faster than they respond to me. So is that something that would be okay as an online practice, or?
I'm with you, but Charter Oak forbids that.
Okay.
So when I do a Charter Oak class, I'm much more heavily handedly involved because they're mandating that.
Okay.
For the CCSU courses, I agree with you 100%. That I come in where it's appropriate, where I can add something meaningful that will not derail the conversation, but might help it along.
Okay.
Especially if a student say, hey, Dr. Larson, what do you think of this? Then I'll pop in exactly what I think. Or once the discussion thread is done, then I might put in a comment like, boy, you guys really, really took this and ran with it. I was really glad you looked at that, and here's one more thing. But I philosophically, I'm with you on that, is that if you give the students this space and a well-crafted question that's open-ended, they will run with it.
Thank you.
And I'll encourage you, just like we wouldn't involve ourselves in an on-ground course, we will support you and give you ideas and share best practices, but we're not going to say you need to be in there on your discussion board every 48 hours. That's just not what we're going to do as a university.
Okay, thank you.
Let me add, I agree with both of you in terms of that. And when I have the synchronous conference that week, I always bring up the homework first and have people kind of respond, give the best answer and have people respond that way. So it kind of, instead of writing every answer, because then sometimes it's inappropriate to do that or it doesn't really belong, but when people say it, you have a chance to follow up. Whereas when you do a discussion board, the follow-up could be like 3 days later or something like that. So I always like to make it so that there's an interaction to when someone says something, then someone else could say, oh yeah, how about this and how about that? And I find that's one of the beauties of a thing like WebEx, is that you do get the different levels right away when the ideas come to people as opposed to asynchronously.
I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but you had a question. Hi, Pat.
I'm curious about how students can be involved in helping add to the content of an online course. I've talked with David a little bit before, and I know Chris has students kind of write in what they're most curious about so that she can tweak her lecture for the weeks when they're meeting in person. But how do students kind of have that ownership? What are some concrete examples of how students can be involved in helping develop the content?
I have a course where they're required to do it, where basically at the end of the last half of the semester, each student has to present 30, 35 minutes of a topic that will be of interest to the class, basically with technology. I've got some recordings. I record them every year, and they find all sorts of incredible things that relate to the course content and to general education, and everybody learns from it. And so once I give them the examples of past courses where people have done this, half of the things that I do now are a result of what students have presented and we've picked up on. And so I think that's it. If you require them to do certain things, in my opinion, if you have that built into the course, I think that can work very well.
So it's an assignment, and it works really nice with your
It does.
topic area.
It does. Well, in different areas too. I've used it in different subjects besides ed tech.
And other activities to sort of like a journal where teams or the entire class cooperate and builds basically chapter after chapter. So at the end of the course, the students can actually print that document, and it has been cleaned up. So some students will be doing the edits, some students will be doing, the professor will be doing the monitoring, and at the end of the course, you end up with an actual document that this is a result, and they can actually print and take it.
And again, my course was just flipped. It wasn't truly online, but I did have students create their own case studies with their own materials that they had to build into the space, so that they could show, here's the spreadsheet that shows this, here's the PowerPoint that supports this message, and they could build that within the shell as well.
I was just going through my list too, and all of my courses are prerequisites for other courses. So I've got to get through a certain amount of material, and I don't ask my students to contribute content because I couldn't add more. The course is pretty full. The time is already taken up.
And I want to actually add to that, my courses are technical in nature, construction management, engineering, economics. So it's difficult to get them to share their information. It's really one-sided. I have to let them get them prepared, get them ready for the next course. It's pretty much prereqs as well. Yes.
So it's discipline specific, perhaps. Some more lend themselves more to more simulations and building those kinds of environments, and others they have to get through the content in a different way.
In answer to his question, what I do is I use the discussion boards to put general questions about the topic I have taught, and I ask students to comment on comments of other students, and sometimes it can take it way off. So then I go in and ask, what do you think about this? Then I ask specific questions to redirect them to the mail what I want. And then I use assignments to get responses from individual students. So discussion board is mainly for everybody. And then I learn from that. I grade them depending upon their responses. So then I use the assignments when I want responses from them.
For me, the discussion boards are always the other way. I don't ask questions. In the discussion boards, I give homework throughout the course. There, after a unit, I'll give a homework assignment. So the discussion threads are where the students are asking me questions and other students.
And I think just like you wouldn't let it get crazy out of hand in an on-ground course, you bring them back in, you rein them back in. You say, hey, you know, are you thinking about this angle? If you can contribute in those ways, I think that it makes really good sense.
No, and what I found, I don't know if it's everybody, I get more from my students on an online course than the ground course. Mainly because when I ask questions, students don't respond. On ground. But online, they will do, and really.
There's a lot of research that really shows that, especially for more introverted students, they can really excel in an online environment because they get less of the pressure of physical participation.
And being shy and all this. Okay.
Yeah.
I used to teach in Alaska to Eskimo students, Native Americans, who don't like to speak in class. And so when we always had weekly online audio conferences, which is like WebEx, etc. And to get the class started off, I'd always have people read their responses to the homework. And so that would be something that would happen over and over again, so people would realize that they have to present, and obviously when people aren't looking at it, maybe it was better for them. But I found that to be a really great way to get people to participate. And in these classes, when people don't ask questions or they don't answer questions, I'll stop the class and tell them we're not going to continue unless we have 2 questions from the class. And I'll tell them I'm a good waiter and I can wait, and then they come up with questions. You know, maybe the first class, they'll just sit there thinking, this guy's crazy or something. But the idea is when I tell them that I need 2 questions, 2 good ones, not like what time is it and stuff, but 2 good, and so they'll come up with something, and invariably it's something that someone should have asked, but didn't do it. So, and if one person asks too many questions, I'll say, well, somebody else, come out with it. What do you think? Give me what's wrong with this or something. But the idea is, I don't expect them to, you know, just, if I say any questions, no one's going to have a question. They don't want you to, you know, they don't want to do that. But if you kind of let them know that that's expected of them. That works for me. That's one of my best practices, I think. I don't know if it would work for anybody else or how you would do that. But once they know that that's expected of them, and they have to have good questions, not what time is it, like I said. So that's what I found there.
Speaking of the good online students, I invariably have at least 2 to 3 students who tell me that they predicted having problems with the online environment because they're bad at scheduling their time and they forget that they're actually taking a class when it's online. Are there any suggestions for how to deal with those students?
So what we're trying to do is address that from the get-go. So every student that's enrolled in a course online for fall is going to be prompted to go to our website where it says, so you want to take an online course, and then it works them through. And we're going to show it today, but we won't spend our time with that. But so you want to take an online course. Here's what you need to know in order to be successful in an online course. So that will start them, hopefully, on the right foot if they actually click the link and go there.
Yeah.
But also, I think it's really important to talk about the early alert system. If the student is not, you know, you can see very easily, David can provide you with the statistics of have they gone in yet? Is it 2 weeks into the class and they haven't yet gone in? You want to use early alert to provide that, and then we'll follow up. We have a separate early alert set up for online for fall, so that it will go directly to someone who can talk to them about their online course.
Okay.
So if you do the early alert, we'll take it from there. But then also midterm grades become very important as well. So, and I know that there's varying degrees of perceived usefulness of midterm grades, but it is good for the student to be able to see, okay, I really need to amp up my game here because I'm in this online class and my current grade is an F because I haven't done any of the assignments. Aram and then Gustavo.
And actually, I'm sorry, just one thing to add to that. Blackboard itself, every time you post a homework or post a video or post a comment, immediately, depends on how you set up Blackboard, you immediately send out an email to all the class and let them know this has been posted. So they're getting bothered by these emails all the time. So if you set them every while on, you should have decent feedback.
I've tried that.
Still-
I've used the early alert.
The early alert is being redesigned for online, so
Yeah.
so that's something that we're launching brand new for fall.
Okay.
So that'll maybe help a little more.
Yeah.
But I think this website too, it has time management on it. It has some tutorials. It has a questionnaire. You know, here are some questions that we know will set you either up well for an online course or kind of say maybe you're not ready.
Right.
So hopefully the student will make a good choice from that.
Thank you.
I think.
No,
Well,
up here.
what about, I love to bring guest speakers to my class. How is that done online?
I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in because I'm so excited about criminal justice has done some amazing online guest lectures because the course is online, right? So the guest lecture is often the FBI Academy or Quantico or wherever, you know, and they can get such great speakers for often no cost because the person doesn't have any travel or anything. And so it's worked like really, really well. Just really exciting.
Yeah, we had David.
No, I was just going to add that it is important also to include as part of the shell not only material on the content but also on the management of the course, to tell them where to find things, where to put things, how to proceed to do these things, because they have those questions sometimes and they should have the answers there.
It's a really, really good point, Gustavo. We have on campus, every single person on campus, whether you know it or not, has a Quality Matters account. You can go into Quality Matters and use the resources, the free resources that are there. If you want to do any training, by all means, we can find money. We want to help you be good instructors online, and Quality Matters is a great model for helping the students know exactly what to expect. The way I explain it is that when the student steps on campus, they have a campus map. We don't move Marcus White and move the student center. They get a map. The things are where they expect them to be every day. They don't have to come onto campus and try to figure it out every time they take a new class. Online should be just the same. They should know when they go online that the faculty members' office hours are going to be on the left-hand side and the modules will be down the center, just the same as a campus map. And that's the only structure that we're asking you to start to consider.
I was going to ask the Blackboard informing students. For example, if they could make a structure such that when we put a new material there, students will automatically be reminded. It could help with the.
We have that.
They do that.
It does that.
So it goes
Yeah.
to, I get some, but
Yep.
I don't know. Oh,
Yep.
okay.
And we can help you do that, no problem.
Then I think they should be fine.
They do, and one also at the beginning of your courses, one recommendation is also to have students introduce themselves. May sound very basic, but do, whether it's live via WebEx or via a discussion topic, the introductions are very important. And if a student for some reason misses the introduction, that's a big telltale. This student may get into trouble because if it missed something so easy as an introduction in a course, what else are they going to be missing? And at the beginning, you're going to have to help them as well in terms of stay on task And because if more than 1 or 2 weeks go by, it could be too difficult for the student to catch up. So the early you can intervene, the best. Of course, we're not babysitting the student. They have responsibilities. They have to come. They have to do their things, what they need to do. They're adults. But sometimes it helps those introductions, early activities in the course, maybe some activity that allows them to navigate your course. And if they don't do it, reach out to them immediately and ask what's going on. Is it something going on?
Actually, that's a very good point. What also maybe I do in my courses before the midterm exam, for example, or the final, they have to practice how to handle an exam. So I give them like an intermediate quiz or assignment so that they know what the expectation is, so they don't get shocked during the time. So typically my exams are timed. I give them 3 hours, for example, to complete it. So they don't get shocked and unaware of how to go about a particular upload of a sheet or a PDF file, and end up spending an hour on that, the technology part, as opposed to sitting and answering the question itself. So preparing them during the first few weeks or months before the exams, I think is quite important as well.
I put up a practice exam, is what I call it, in classes where I give online assessments. So, and not all of them do it, and there are problems come exam day sometimes, but so they can make sure they can get in, they understand how the exam environment works, the quiz environment. I also put a discussion thread, started a discussion thread I call Who's Who in the Class. A lot of the reason is so that the students can introduce themselves, and that starts conversations between the students, but also so the students will become familiar with using the discussion threads, and hopefully when they have a question, not be reluctant to ask through the discussion threads.
That's how I start my discussion too, as an introduction thread.
I know a couple of you brought some assignments to show. Would you guys like to see some successful assignments?
Certainly.
Well, I just have up there the list of some of my discussions, and as I already said, because of the science phobia, I try to make it so that everything relates to a person's life. So they're showing the content and showing how it's related to their life. Like, rather than just teaching classes of minerals, find a mineral that's found in your area and tell us what it's used for, and compare it to somebody else's erosion and weathering in your driveway, in your town, things like that. And same thing with the essays. And a lot of these have no right answer, but they have to demonstrate what they have learned in order to do this successfully. The Pluto one is always a favorite one. But
What's in the YouTube there?
that's what I'm getting to around. So this is a video. I don't do Camtasia. I'm like low-tech girl. I use my cell phone and my laptop. When I go in to give a lecture, it's not perfect, it's not polished. Neither are my online videos. They're gonna learn the real me, warts and all, okay? So I'm gonna show you a minute and a half of something I filmed in my office about ozone depletion and ultraviolet rays, okay? So I'm gonna start this at about 1:25.
I liked the online, would you rather live near a volcano or a fault line?
Yeah, I also have, would you rather live through a hurricane or a tornado? Okay.
Hurricane.
All right, so let's go from here.
Will actually change color when they are exposed to ultraviolet light. So I have an ultraviolet flashlight, think of it like a black light, and if I shine this on these beads, hopefully you will see that they have changed color. Let me move the computer here. Okay? So these have changed color. They've been exposed to ultraviolet light. Now, it's really bad outside today. It's very foggy and misty, and you're saying, well, no ultraviolet light can be getting through those clouds. But wait, I have a fresh batch of beads. We're going to walk over to the other side of my office. One of the great things about being an astronomer is you have your own platform outside your office on the roof. So, I'm outside. Hopefully you can see that it is not sunny out, but these beads are changing color. Now they're changing color a lot more slowly than they did under the ultraviolet flashlight. Hopefully you can see that they are indeed changing color. So even though it's cloudy and misty out, there is still ultraviolet light getting through the clouds. Now, obviously, I'm not telling you that you should wear heavy sunscreen on a cloudy day unless you're very sensitive to the sun, but I just wanted to make that point. Now, it could be a lot worse because most of the ultraviolet light from the sun doesn't actually make it to the surface of the Earth. It's blocked by something called the ozone layer.
And so you get the idea that I'm making it like I'm having a conversation with you about this scientific thing. I'm trying to put in some hands-on activities. It's not a straight lecture. It is not polished, but again, neither would it be if you were in my classroom. So those are the kinds of videos that I do. I try to do them short, a lot of shorter videos because they load a lot faster, and I tried embedding them in Blackboard. I was having issues, so I just threw them up on a place on YouTube that people can't find. They're private. So I can link, just put the link in for the students, and I don't have to worry about other people seeing them. And it will also give you a counter of how many people have seen your video, so you can actually see if the students, I mean, you know, if a person goes in twice, then oh well, but you can tell if like there was one time I did one and it was like a day later, it's like, guys, this has been up there for 24 hours, kind of go look at it. So those are things that I do. So
I think that's a really good point too, is it doesn't have to be really perfect. It's not Hollywood scripted. It's, you know.
Well, it's the difference between recording and instruction.
Right.
You know, if you purposely design instruction, then you probably go write a script or something like that. And if you're recording something, as Chris did, then it's like being in a lecture without being in the lecture. And having that over again, you can repeat it over again.
Thanks. Good point. Did you want to show some things, Karen?
I'll show a couple of things. Actually, I did something on best practices real quick. Let me see if I can see this. There we go, best practices. I think I spelled it right, but I'm not positive. Okay, best practice. Just I put a couple up there. I always have a late pass. So that means that both on campus and off campus, anytime students come to class, they know in the syllabus that there's a late pass, so that things happen, you know, there's more than one teachers, people have life, things. And so they get a late pass for, depends on 1 or 2 credit, depends on the credits, but they can have 1 or 2 weeks. And so people use it every semester just because things happen. And I found out from experience, because everything I usually do in class is from a mistake I've made, that people don't get nervous when they have all the tests due at the same time and so on. So they're always using a late pass. Just a simple thing. Then I have weekly synchronous conferences, and here's, this is a student, one of the student activities that they did. And she picked up on something called Gibbon. I've never heard of it.
All right, so can everyone hear me okay?
And here's all the students up here. We can. This is a
All
summer
right,
class.
perfect. So I am one to use Pinterest all the time. You know, I really do like the idea that it's all in one place. And when it came to getting the topic,
Anyhow, so she, you can see actually along here, you have all the chat. People are chatting. They can chat to me or to the whole class.
While they're listening?
Yeah. And then you see this ball here. That for WebEx, what's nice is you can take the ball and move it anywhere, and that person then will become the speaker, and you can see their screen. And so people are expected to actually participate. Sometimes they'll have the screen and do something. Sometimes they'll share it. But the idea is when you make it interactive in the way that students do have to participate intellectually because they're graduate students or undergraduate, but they're going to be graduates soon. So that's another best practice. And one other.
1 second. So if you're the teacher and you didn't hear from Joe, you can move the ball to Joe and ask him, Joe, what do you think?
I can ask him first. I'd say, Joe, in other words, I wouldn't just give it to him and do that. I
You
would
might be
say,
on Facebook.
I'm sorry?
You might be on Facebook.
I don't use Facebook. Sorry.
No, what I'm saying is you might
Oh,
not, you might not be
oh.
attending.
No, what happens is you chat and I'll call on people. In other words, you can raise your hand when you're here. So I don't know if anyone's got their hand raised, but there's a section here you click, you raise your hand, and I'll call on people. I'll say, Laura, what do you think about that? So they know that I'm going to do that, and So that works pretty well, and I also keep tabs, so I have like the list, and when somebody answers, I just kind of write a little note or something like that, or on my hand or something. Then, since I've been here, since '97, I've always had students make websites. In every single class, they have to make their own website, no matter what. And so in this class here, this is 415, it's an undergraduate class, and there's Ashley. And so as far as getting people to know each other, I make sure that they all put something down about themselves right away, so that everybody can look at everybody else's site and see who they are. Then on our site, here's, I have them do two things. So I have put assignments. So each week, every few weeks, I'll have an assignment that they'll have to embed on the website as well. And so here, let's see what she's done. We've had, let's see, they did a fake book, which is, fake book is you can make like a fake character and stuff. And here's cartoon animation, they have Volky where they're speaking and stuff like that.
Hello, my name is Vanessa.
Hi, Vanessa. And then, a bunch of the activities are here on the assignments, not all of them, but I wish have them have maybe 5 or 6 activities, have them embedded. They have to learn how to embed. PLN is called a Personal Learning Network. We've been doing that forever. And the idea is that because you're in school or you're a professor, whatever it is, your education is static. When you graduate, we expect you as a teacher to keep learning and so on. And so we have them search for things. Now in these classes, I have them actually look for resources for their other classes. So if there's if there's a Math 412 teacher here, I actually have her looking at websites that will go along with what she's learning in the class. So, yeah.
Barry, what platform do you use for your students' websites?
Oh, there's several. Some I use Wix, some I use YOLA, Y-O-L-A. That's kind of the brain dead one. It's real simple to use. Weebly's another. When I first came here, we used a thing called Tripod, which is incredibly easy to use. But each week, she has to find a resource from one of the 3 classes that she's taking. And I always tell them to try and pick classes they don't like or subjects that they're not good at. So elementary science methods, not a science person, so she looks at Turtle Diary and Science Kids and stuff like that. So hopefully by the end of the semester, they've discovered 7, I guess it was an 8-week class, they've discovered 7 resources for each of the 3 classes that they're taking, and hopefully some of those will stick. And so everybody can see everybody else's website and share their websites as well. So I just stuck that up real quick, but that's some of the best practices. I use Moodle and not Blackboard, and so I have other things in Moodle that actually I find better for students. So that's that.
Thanks, Tim. Any other best practices you all would like to share? I know a number of people have classes at 4:30, so we'll probably wrap it up with just a couple more questions then.
Does anyone require delivery of presentation, making presentation and delivery for benefit of all the students around the faculty? And how is that being handled?
What do you think?
Making presentations
One more
on,
presentation.
like a recording of the student, I'm guessing, so a recording of the student making a presentation?
Yeah, tons. They get up and they make everything in the class. I don't know, if you have a second, I can show.
Sure.
Every class
I don't,
is
because
recorded.
I think it would be kind of tough in mathematics to have a student, unless it was a seminar course where each student did have to research a topic, but none of the courses I teach online are like that.
And while he's pulling that up, yeah, in my flipped class, I had them record video of, again, it was a public speaking class, so record the speech, your rough draft. Now, they had to actually do the speech in the room, which goes to my statement that I'll never make anybody teach an online class, because I firmly believe that public speaking could never be a truly online class. However, could they practice and make presentations that they posted? Absolutely, and I strongly encourage that.
I don't know if I have any. So basically, in any of these classes, this is one that's ongoing now, I may not have everything. All the classes are recorded. I use QuickTime. So we did I'd have students sometimes make their presentations and they record it exactly the same way that this is recorded. So their face wouldn't be on. It wouldn't be like he's recording, but they'd be able to hear and see themselves or see their presentation and then be able to critique it, not worry about how they look. This is just starting the class, and then we did, let's see,
And then go to week 3.
a Padlet activity.
And she's Padlet.
And just doing one of your favorite uses of the internet. That's called Padlet. I'm sure you've all seen that.
Yeah, that's good.
You can collaborate on that. But the idea is
Josie,
that
sorry?
when students do their projects, they get up in front of the class and they do them, but they're recorded this way, then they can go back and just see what other folks saw. And they don't have to worry about how they looked and stuff. I find that to be beneficial because you can actually just focus on the content in your voice. And so that's, I mean, it's not difficult to do. I do have some students, but I don't think I can look through to find them.
The idea is, I mean, and they can record it using, well, almost everybody has smartphones. I mean, you want to, yeah, you want to be considerate of your students' technology gaps. So, you know, you want to let them know at the very beginning if you're going to require that they record themselves, that they have some means of doing that. I mean, webcams aren't that expensive, but we still don't want to assume that everyone is going to have access to that technology. You know, we assume that they can go to the library and do their homework, but they might not be able to record themselves. So you want to be respectful, but I think that it's certainly a reasonable expectation.
Pretty much every laptop these days comes with a camera.
Right.
And if they have a fairly, I'm sorry?
They all have smartphones.
Yeah.
Well, no, not so much,
Most.
not 100%, most do. But if that laptop comes out, do they need to have special software to record themselves?
No.
No, I do it right off my, I have no special software on my laptop. I just, what I was doing there was just I forget even what program, it was one of the programs that was already on my laptop.
Yeah,
It might have been part of Office
it's
or
right there.
something, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But the thing is, we have them, they do evaluations of software, then they have to record that and email it to me. And then I get it, and then I take that and I project it up on the screen, they all see each other's. And they work in teams, so even if someone doesn't have a smartphone, then they work together, so that they all get recorded and record. The idea is to make it ubiquitous, to make it, another best practice that I have is technology is consumer level. That means that people use it ubiquitously. And that means that they don't have to have fear of using it, and the more we encourage them to use the technologies they use at home, the better off it is in education, because then when they teach and when they work, they'll use the technology as well. So if you have phones, just have people just record, use your laptop or with their phone, record stuff and post it, email it or post it to Blackboard. It'll get them out of the habit, you know, you don't want things to become like wallpaper. You know, you put something on the wall and 2 days later it's just wallpaper, people don't even remember it. So you want to have enough variety so that they keeps them interested and excited, in my opinion.
In one of my blended classes, when I used to have presentations in the last 2 classes, and so we kind of wasted 2 classes for the students going over and over and over. Now what they do is they record it, they put it on Vimeo, they send it to me, I post it, and I ask them to respond or comment on a couple of them. Either one that it's interesting to them, or a topic that they worked on, or some different topic. So,
That's a great idea.
so we gain 2 classroom periods.
Yes.
Anything else? Well, thank you very much. There are cookies and soda. Please help yourself on your way out. And if I can answer any procedural questions, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you very much. It was
Thank
very
you.
useful.
Is it too late to request a hybrid for next fall?